So this leads us to the first really important principle in coding. I mentioned in the previous video that there are 4 key principles, and we're going to look at 3 of them in this project. This is the first one. It's storing information. We have data, we have information, whatever the information is, and we need to somehow store it within our computer program to use it later on in that computer program. And that's what's happening on line 3. Input is asking the user to send something back to the program, but we are not storing that information. And the way we're going to store that information, I like to think of this as creating a box, and you're going to put something in the box, right? And we need to label the box. And in this case, I'm going to label the box player name. And the way I do this is by saying, give it any name you want. There are some rules on naming things. You might have seen that I've put an underscore there, not a space, but we'll deal with the rules in a bit. Equals, and the equals is how I'm going to create this box, label it player name, and inside the box, I'm putting whatever comes back from input. This is going to be what the user types in. So if I run the program now, you're not going to see any difference because from a user point of view, nothing has happened. But what has happened behind the scenes is that the text Stephen has actually gone back to the program and it was stored using the label player name, which means that in my program, I can use player name to refer to the characters STEPHEN. So let's see whether we can fix this. Can I put player name there instead of Stephen? Let's find out. Well, no, because a reminder that anything in the quotation marks, incidentally, quotation marks are what we call, anything inside the speech marks is what we call a string of characters, a string for short. So you'll hear me introduce the terminology gradually. One thing I don't like to do is I don't like to put the terminology first. I'd rather first explain the concepts and then come to the terminology later. So I'll introduce them gradually. That's a string. If you hear me say a string, it's just a string of characters. Python is taking that literally. So it's typing in PLAYER_NAME. So this is not good enough. What we want to do is we want to find a way of telling Python this is not actually those characters. We want you to refer to a word that you know now. Player name is a label that you know. Now, Python has lots of ways of doing this. I'm going to show you the most modern one. There will be a separate video that will take you through all ways of putting strings together. But in this case, we are going to use, instead of a normal string, which is what you have there, we're going to use a formatted string. We're going to format the string in a slightly fancier way. So that's why I've put an F right outside the quotation marks. And instead of player name, I'm going to put a pair of curly brackets. And the curly brackets are a placeholder. We're saying inside the string of characters, I would like you to take something that you know, for example, player name, and whatever that is, place it there. And if I run the program now, let's go back to Bob. Let's assume I'm Bob now. It says, hi Bob, are you ready to play? And if on the other hand I say Stephen, it says, hi Stephen, are you ready to play? So now, on line 3, we have managed to store whatever came back from input in a variable, we call this a variable, in a box labeled player name. So on line 5, I could then say, go and fetch the contents of this box player name. It happens to be the characters STEPHEN or whatever you type in. And this is how we're going to move information from one part of the program, in this case line 3, to another part of the program, in this case line 5. Of course, I can use this variable, this box with information in it, at any point in my program. It doesn't have to be on the next line. It could be on line 500 if I have a really long program. So that's how we're going to create a variable. The equals is what tells Python I am going to assign data. Let's just put some technical terms there. I'm going to assign some data, whatever is on the right hand side. I want to assign it to a variable, a box labeled player name. And that's what we mean by creating a variable, assigning data to a variable.